I'm Shannon.
And I'm Holly, and this is the Girls Gone Curious podcast, where we talk about things that make us curious. So, grab your favorite drink, sit back, and relax, because your show is loading. Today's episode includes the following trigger warnings: mentioning topics of murder and strong language, like always. This podcast is not suitable for children. Please listen with care. We do apologize if we say any of the names or places wrong in today's case. This week's true crime category is unexplained event. So, let's get into it.
Edward Teach wanted a life at sea. This life would lead to theft, murder, and the infamous treasure that so many have sought to find, even to this day. Edward Teach was born in 1680 in Bristol, England. Not much is known of Edward as a child or in his very early teen years. It is believed, though, that Edward came from a hard-working family. His mother took care of the children and the household. She would make sure that meals stretched as far as possible because there wouldn't have been much food to begin with. Edward's father was most likely a merchant, dock worker, or sailor. This type of work would be demanding of any individual that did it. Long, back-breaking days for little pay. Sometimes they would be gone for months at a time. It is believed Edward had siblings, but no verifiable information has been found. Bristol was the busiest harbor of England besides London. Most of the product that was shipped in was tobacco, sugar, and wine. Edward would get to know the importance of living by the water, the benefits, and the tragedies of it all. Many of the children that lived by the ocean would need to learn how to tie rope, weather signs, and work the ships. Edward wasn't any different. As a young teen, he would run messages from captains to merchants, run errands for the cooks, and help move barrels. Edward, as he was growing, was mentioned as being a very tall man at over 6 foot tall. Most men at this time were barely 5 foot 6 inches tall. He had broad shoulders and was thought of as being very quiet. His height made him quicker and stronger than most, and so he moved from errand boy to deckhand very quickly. He would travel on several different ships on several different occasions. He would observe everything that would be discussed, from routes to winds and pirates to avoiding custom officers. He watched how deckhands tied knots and how the cooks could make food and water stretch for days and days when needed. Which he already kind of knew how that worked because his mom had to do it. He would then be ready for longer voyages. Some of those voyages would be to America. During these longer voyages, there was a threat of bug-infested flour, scurvy, and very cramped living quarters.
And I bet it was very unhygienic.
Yeah, for sure. He never complained, though. He just went with the flow. He slept in a hammock, and on days when food was scarce, he would opt for just a biscuit. In his travels, he also would have witnessed several instances of privateering. The risk was huge, and the reward was huge if done right. In 1701, he decided to sign on to be a part of the crew for Jonas Hargrove. Hargrove taught the younger deckhands how to go with the current instead of fighting it. Food was often the same every single day. They would have oatmeal for breakfast, pork for lunch, and then leftovers for dinner. The threat of scurvy would still be there, so everyone would suck on lemons or tobacco when needed.
How does lemons help it? I get tobacco because, you could get, nicotine from it, maybe, but,
So I guess the scurvy happens when you don't have enough, nutrients from fruit. But scurvy is a deficiency disease, a sort of malnutrition resulting from a lack of vitamin C. So then they would suck on lemons to get that vitamin C that they needed.
For whatever reason, I was thinking, I knew scurvy wasn't this, but I was thinking something along the lines, don't they get, since they're on water for so long, something happens to them, their body-wise?
I think so, yeah.
And it's I don't know.
It says hypothermia, skin damage, and cardiovascular strain. So that's not it.
I don't know how the fuck to say that.
Malde Barquanet syndrome.
They say it's MDDS. It's a rare vestibular disorder. Makes you feel like you're rocking or swaying even when you're not. Often after returning to land from a long cruise or sea trip. Symptoms can include unsteadiness, brain fog, confusion, anxiety, depression, and trouble focusing.
Interesting.
I think maybe that's what I was thinking. I don't know, but like, yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. Maybe they had it, but they just didn't know because of how early it was.
Yeah. Or maybe they got it like the first couple times they did long trips, but then like their body got used to it.
Yeah.
Or if they were on the boat for 98% of the time and only 2% on land, might have not even really noticed it or
true
something. Yeah. Anyways.
The typical seaman would earn around 24 shillings a month. A successful privateer, however, could make that and so much more in one single day. Seeing the possible wage increase, he would take a bit to make the decision on what he would do next. His wages that he was earning now barely covered new boots and tobacco for the month. On a voyage to the Bahamas, Edward would get a reputation that he was someone to leave alone, mainly because he was still a quiet observer. It was also just because he would stop stupid bar brawls with 1 or 2 punches. Some of the seamen hadn't been to the Bahamas. There was an abundance of fresh fruits and great rum. That's Robbie.
Oh, that's the other thing. They could be drinking so much rum that they just think it's from drinking or something else.
Yeah. All of the drinking led to bar fights that Edward would eventually break up. Edward would sign up to be a deckhand on a larger vessel heading to Chesapeake Bay. He still hadn't made the decision to become a privateer just yet. Captains from all over the world would seek out Edward because of his skills and stature. He would continue to quietly observe and listen. In some small taverns, he would hear the stories of other privateers and the hauls that they would come back with. It was honestly staggering. Sometimes the amount would be over 5 years' worth of wages for a single trip. That kind of money was hard to ignore. In 1710, Edward made his decision to not sign up to be a merchant again. He figured he learned as much as he possibly could under the apprenticeship, and he believed the ocean taught him everything else he needed. He was going to choose a life as a privateer. Edward made the decision to walk up to the offices of the merchants. They were in the process of starting another privateer voyage. This ship would be known as Queen Anne's Revenge. Here, he would be chosen as a gunman. On board, he would learn how to hoist the guns, load them, and get away before it would be lit. The crew of 60 would each receive a share of the prize after the owners claimed their payment, once the delivery was made. So how this would go is they would take over a ship, tally everything up, like, hey, this one has like 100 coins of some sort, and then it has silver bars, but there's also rum on board. There might be rope, nails, all kinds of things. And so then they would take it back to the ship, and the captain and whoever else he wanted to would sit there and count everything. And then the captain would take his cut first, and then the rest of the crew would get a cut of it. Edward would begin getting his shares through 8 of the vessels that were captured. He would send money back to his parents in Bristol, and he would also keep some of his earnings in a small chest on board. Every night, he would count his money quietly, thinking of what he could do with that money and more. There was one last stop for Queen Anne's Revenge during this voyage, and that was to sell off the last prizes the crew had collected. The crew would be paid off, and that would be the last legal privateer voyage. Since the war was ending, legal privateering would no longer, be legal.
It's crazy to me that it was even legal to begin with.
In fact, the sentence anyone would get if they got caught privateering was to be hung. After the last voyage, some of the men would go to sign back up with merchant fleets, and others would choose to stay where they had docked, in Nassau. Edward was one of the ones who chose to stay in Nassau. He would bury some of his money in small sacks along the shoreline, put it in a box where he was staying or in his belt. He would grow his beard out since he didn't have to keep it trimmed by other captains' standards. During his stay, he would learn of ships that wrecked close to shore near Florida and the small amounts of gold and silver that could be found. He was in. He began talking to some men that he trusted. They would work and keep their mouths shut. They purchased a small ship to make the voyage. The voyage honestly seemed to be worth it. They gathered useful cargo from the ocean. Some of the loot would be silver bars. This would allow Edward to pay his men on time and enough left over to fix his ship, the Revenge, and get it ready for another voyage. After each trip, they would return to Nassau. Here is where a small community would build from the people who took solace there. Men from all over the world would come here to live on their own terms. No laws necessarily. If anyone started anything, Edward would say only one word, and it would stop. Edward became well known here as well. He paid his few men very well. Edward would be seen walking the beach at early hours of the morning and late in the evening, just walking and observing. Early mornings he spent cleaning his gun and counting his money. His beard was waist length now. He would tie it back when he was working, but if he wasn't, it would be free. This is where he got the nickname Blackbeard. Everyone began calling him this, and he never corrected them. Around 1716, Captain Hornigold, a previous captain that Blackbeard worked for, came to port in Nassau looking for men. The men currently employed looked well fed, so many of the men would go on board. Capturing smaller vessels would begin. The merchant on the smaller vessels would hand over their papers, and Hornigold's crew would take inventory of everything on board. The loot would be divided among the men once Captain Hornigold got his cut. Blackbeard would continue working hard, and within a year he would become a commander. Hornigold and Blackbeard would have conversations daily on the tasks at hand and where to head next. If there was a ship approaching, the two would meet up and determine what and how to act on it. The men noticed the changes being made with Blackbeard. He would get more and more responsibilities. He would also, when the prizes or loot were taken, he would count everything in front of the crew so they could all see that everyone got equal shares. This earned him respect. The men were loyal. They believed in everything he did. Blackbeard became a sought-after captain. He produced results without being a dick to his men. He was fair. He wouldn't employ all men that wanted to be a part of his crew. When they would head back to Nassau, men would draw to him for stories of the raids and the ability to have a loyal crew without violence. Blackbeard would send messages through each of the raids that resistance to the takeover was futile. Resistance would only bring damage, but surrendering would bring fair treatment to all aboard the vessel. Now to back up a bit, there is no government per se in Nassau at this time. The only laws were those of the men and few women that lived there. I believe they said at the time there was like 1,000 men and maybe like a handful of women, like maybe like 8 to 20 women.
Damn.
And they like ran the shops, and they would have like, they would bake bread, things like that. Hard work would pay off, and don't be an asshole. Pretty much was the law. It seemed like there wasn't too much attention drawn to the area. The British government didn't really care about an island that housed pirates, and they weren't causing too much trouble at the time. Then fast forward to the time period of 1717, and the British government is starting to talk about the pirates in Nassau and what to do with it. Again, nothing is done, but there is talk.
I mean, in reality, if they're not like actually hurting and
Right.
killing people, and
he was one of the ones that he didn't want to kill people to take over their stuff. It wasn't that type of,
yeah,
he wasn't that type of person. In 1718, Hornigold and Blackbeard would take over the French ship La Concorde. The takeover would be fast, and the captain gave papers over with no problems. The haul contained sugar, indigo, gold dust, and gold coins. Hornigold and Blackbeard would walk the ship looking at its structure, and it would be determined that Blackbeard would be the captain for this larger ship. This ship was to be renamed as Queen Anne's Revenge, just like the ship earlier. The two would take over 2 more smaller ships, and then Hornigold would decide to be done and head back to Nassau with the prizes and loot he had been given. The split was noted as friendly, both shaking hands before Hornigold left. Edward would continue to do his daily routine of walking the ship at night, cleaning his guns in the morning, brushing his beard with bone, tying it back when needed, and writing in his journal daily. There would be sketches of land and notes of everything from food portions to how the ship handled the ocean in certain situations. It would also contain the prizes from every ship they captured. Blackbeard would begin putting saltpeat-soaked hemp cord matches under his hat and would light them right before a takeover. The smoke would filter around him, creating an eerie sight for those on board the ship to be taken over. One of the merchant captains reported seeing Blackbeard. He described him as the devil with fire in his beard, standing on the rail of the ship. He had 3 pistols hung over his shoulder and a knife on his hip. The story spread quickly, and Blackbeard didn't do anything to keep it going or to stop it.
He's probably like, it is what it is.
Yeah. Now back to the government portion. So because Blackbeard was so successful with all of his raids, the governors of Virginia and the Carolinas would begin complaining to London about all of the lost or stolen cargo. It still wasn't a top priority, though. Blackbeard would use this to his advantage, sailing from the Carolinas to the Bahamas and back. Daily work continued for his crew, and they would stop in some ports to get fresh water and repair their ship. The men continued to get equal shares, and prizes were brought in front of all to be divided equally. In one instance, a sailor tried to hide a bottle of rum for himself. Blackbeard made him go get it and give it to him. He took the bottle and dumped it into the sharing barrel of rum. If injuries occurred, the men would be compensated depending on the injury. If they lost an arm, they could get 600 pieces of an 8 for right arm, 500 pieces of an 8 for a left arm, 400 for a leg, and less than that for an eye or fingers. The amount...
Yeah, because you
don't need to see.
You don't need to see. It's fine.
The amounts were agreed upon with everyone on board.
I mean, at least everyone agreed that
Right.
an eye isn't
Right.
less important.
Side note, the term 500 pieces of an 8 is referring to the money in Spanish dollars. This would be 500 in Spanish dollars. In relation to today's money, it would be over $3,100. That's a lot of money. That is a lot of money. There was a chest in the captain's quarters, of course. It had 2 keys. Blackbeard had one, and the quartermaster had the other. Side note, the quartermaster was a trusted individual who would work directly under the captain. That person would take inventory of what the ship had and would be able to veto a captain's decision if it wasn't the best for the crew. Blackbeard's process would begin to rub off on his crew. They would begin talking of prizes from the past and how they could have made it easier. They would talk about functionality of the ship and where it could be improved. They would talk about food and how fresh turtle was better than salted beef. There wasn't any fighting. Queen Anne's Revenge ran smoothly. When the prizes were divided, again, each man would get a sack of coins that would each be equal. Blackbeard would keep his locked in the chest until they would be back to base in Nassau. Then he would hide it. Warnings began coming out telling men not to join the growing number of pirate ships, that the consequences could be the end of their life. No one listened, though. No threats had ever resulted in action so far. So, like previously, like before the war had started, privateering was not legal. And then it was like the war came and they're like, yeah, it's fine. You can totally take over other ships. It's fine. And then after the war, they're like, it's not legal anymore. Stop it.
Yeah, pretty much like, well, we're like going to war and we're kind of killing everyone.
Right.
Like, we're killing each other anyway, so just have fun on the water.
Right. Late summer of 1718, patrol ships began being noticed along the shores of the Carolinas. The talk finally started proving action. London officials began making it known that if pirates surrendered before a specific date, there would be pardons given. The crew of Queen Anne's Revenge took a vote and determined to keep going because this had been promised before with no action, so what would make this time any different?
Yeah.
Except that they actually had patrol ships going back and forth.
Yeah.
One decision would change the trajectory of the crew and the ship. Several crew members would become ill with fevers, sweats, and chills. The medicine quinine was running low, and they needed to head somewhere they would have access to larger supplies. Nassau wouldn't be able to provide that, so they had to set sail to the port of Charlestown. A meeting occurred, and everyone agreed to only get the medicine, not to raid the entire town. That they were only there to get the medicine and a few items to cover the time lost. Once there, the governor decided it was better to meet the demands of the pirates because they did not have the manpower to fight back. Medicines and livestock were brought on board. That was the price for them not to tear up the town, was all the medicine that they needed and any type of, not all of the livestock, but enough to get them through.
Yeah, I imagine that, like, not all the livestock could fit on the ships.
Yeah, I think it was, like, maybe already processed beef or pork and then some chickens. The men who were ill were given the medicine and broth made from the livestock. The governor wrote desperate letters to London, asking for naval support to fight against the pirates. Blackbeard and his crew would continue on and sail to Bathtown, North Carolina, to give papers for potential pardons. So they had like one last little joyride, and then like, okay, now maybe since there's patrol ships, we should probably seek somewhere where they're going to give us a pardon. Governor Charles Eden accepted the papers and granted the pardons. Once the pardons were accepted, Blackbeard went back to the ship and explained to his men that they could go ashore and not have to worry about being arrested. It was time for the crew to try a bit of the settled lifestyle. He would rent a small one-bedroom home. It was weird for him, sleeping in an actual bed as opposed to his hammock. He has slept in most of his life. Even though he was leading a much quieter life, some habits remained. He kept to himself mostly, woke early in the morning, cleaned his guns, and walked around his home, monitoring the area. This quietness would become too much for him. It was great to rest up, but the ocean was calling. In October, he would head out, back to the ways of ship life. In November, Governor Alexander Spotswood of Virginia wanted to take action. He had been following the reports close enough on Blackbeard and his crew. He knew where they were stationed and the direction they were heading in. He knew about the pardons given, but he believed that the governor of Bathtown was weak, and that the pardon shouldn't have happened. Word also traveled to him that Blackbeard was heavily back into the lifestyle, but with restraint. He wasn't going after prizes of gold and silver. Spotswood wasn't going to wait for confirmation from London, though. He was going to take action. So the proclamation of pardons, like the paperwork of the pardons, it said something like, you can still be a pirate, but it's only certain things you can steal. Like, you can't kill anybody, you can't take any gold, silver, anything like that. But you can take, like, nails or...
wood.
Yeah, anything like that.
So weird.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming he basically just had the same crew? Or did he...
Yeah, so his crew on Queen Anne's Revenge was actually up in the 300s because it was such a large ship.
Damn.
And then this, after they were seeking pardons, his crew like kind of split up, and they were like, okay, well, we're going to go back to this. We're going to go back to the merchant life, this, that, and the other. So there was probably about 30 to 40 guys that were
so
with
definitely
him still.
Smaller, but he still had a decent crew.
Yeah, he still had a decent crew, and a lot of them were like part of his crew that stayed
probably in
like in Bathtown.
In this, they're in the same area that he did.
Yeah,
because I'm sure some of them are probably just loyal to him, and whatever he's doing, they probably want to do.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like one of my questions that I was going to ask later, but like, He answered it. Was how many people were in his crew, because the way it sounded when he raided the town for like medicine, you said that they didn't have enough forces there to go against the crew, and it's like, then that's gonna be a pretty big fucking crew.
Yeah, he was pretty big. The whole crew was, for sure.
That's gotta be a big ass ship.
Yeah, and it said that like even his bedroom was like, or the captain's quarters was huge compared to what he was dealing with before.
If only we could see it today.
Mm-hmm.
What the ship looked like.
Yeah, and the original, not the one that, not the first one, but the second one, the giant.
Yeah.
Queen Anne's Revenge.
Yeah.
Spotswood would meet with Lieutenant Robert Maynard. He told him to find Teach, who is Blackbeard, and bring him in, dead or alive. The pardon would not be in effect if the capture happened under royal authority. So on November 22nd, in Ocracoke Inlet, Maynard and his crew made it to where Blackbeard was, said to be anchored. They came in slowly and undetected in smaller boats. The men were armed with pistols, muskets, and knives. They drew closer and raised their British flag and ordered him to surrender. Blackbeard saw them before they raised their flag, and he raised his black flag. He shouted he would not surrender. The fight would end up hand to hand on deck after the first cannon shots would be fired.
Like, you're telling me that this very seasoned sailor that was a pirate isn't gonna fucking notice when there's an invasion.
Right. And he's very, very, like, day-to-day tasks. Like, he's very anal about doing things, like checking the guns, all that kind of stuff.
And I'm sure if he's not checking the ship, someone is checking around. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, you're in a big fucking ocean or sea, and you're gonna be able to see if something's moving in the water. Right. I mean, unless it's like pitch dark out, then you might not see, but
even still, you always have someone to be lookout.
Yeah.
Take shifts or whatever.
Yeah.
So Blackbeard's crew, the ones that survived, said that he was strong and calm all the way until the end. Even when he was covered in blood and all of the men were slipping all over the deck because of how much blood there was, he stayed strong and calm. Blackbeard finally fell from all of the wounds he received. He had 5 gunshot wounds and 20 sword gashes. Maynard ordered for Blackbeard's head to be cut off from his body and mounted to the boat. Blackbeard's men, now outnumbered and their captain was dead, surrendered.
I feel like this Maynard.
Yeah,
this fucking person just has it out for Blackbeard.
Yeah, I do too. Like maybe he was committing, theft and stuff, but he wasn't killing anybody. And there are pirates that would kill people for their stuff.
And probably do many of other things to women and children.
Yeah. So Blackbeard, when they would take over a ship, they would raise their flag, they would fire one warning shot, and almost always the other boat, the merchant captain or whoever the captain was, would just give over the papers. And he would allow them he would give them enough rations so they could
make it to the
next whichever, or put them in smaller boats so they could get to the next port, something like that. So
he wouldn't just like strand them with no one.
He wouldn't just
nothing.
like push them overboard and sucks to suck. Anything like that. And he did say to spread the word, to like tell everybody like, hey, do it my way, or the other way you're not gonna like, and at least this way you get to live and have food for 10 days.
Sure there's some probably deaths on his hand, because there's gonna be ships that gonna go down with the ship that's not gonna give over anything, so I'm sure that there is some people that is probably
that died because of
Because I can't imagine that everyone would.
Yeah. Be like.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Maynard only found a silver cup, the notebook, and a small satchel of coins that was Blackbeard's. Most of the men, even though they surrendered, were tried, found guilty, and hung. There was only a very few of the 30 to 40 men that were on that last ship with Blackbeard that survived. And they either spent time in prison or they did time in prison and then they were released and they could go back to work, but it would be like
restricted.
Mm-hmm, yeah. And it would be like back to the initial hard backbreaking work that they were trying to get the hell away from.
Yeah. Well, the other thing about this is that they did go and get pardoned and stuff, and they were doing what
was allowed in the pardon papers.
Yeah.
But this guy was like, nah, fuck that. Like,
yeah,
I don't like it. So, and this guy is I guess spineless chicken, so I'm going to make it a royal command. Even though I don't know if he was a dedicated, like, are those powers delegated to the governors? And if that's the case, the other governor already pardoned them.
Yeah.
So I don't know exactly how that works, but that's interesting.
Yeah, and was this person just trying to kill Blackbeard just to, like, gain some sort of, like, power in the government and stuff-wise?
That's what I was wondering, too.
Yeah.
Blackbeard's head was said to be preserved in brine and placed in evidence.
What the fuck?
Yeah. His notebook was also said to have been put in evidence. Queen Anne's revenge was said to be cleaned up and put somewhere for safekeeping, but that was a lie. So his head is nowhere to be found. The notebook is nowhere to be found. And the notebook had sketches, like, of landmarks of the sky, the stars in the sky, drawings of ships, where exactly he found what, potentially where stuff was buried.
Yeah, that was another one of my questions, was if his daily journal was still around.
Yeah. They say that it's been lost, so...
Lost.
Yeah, I don't buy that for a second.
Yeah.
So Queen Anne's Revenge was actually found in 1996. It was 25 feet below the water by the Beaufort Inlet. The wreck has been studied for many years and no treasure was found on board. So, where's the treasure?
And how did it sink? If it was in...
It was literally seaworthy, and he had docked it somewhere, like in Bathtown. He had docked it, and they were, that ship was done. Not done, like, as in no longer able to float, but it was put there, and then they got on a smaller ship, is my understanding, and was roaming the areas.
What the fuck?
So like, how the hell did it sink?
How the fuck did it sink?
Yeah.
If it wasn't even out.
So theories and curiosity run rampant, which understandably. So the unexplained event in this case is there are facts in Blackbeard's notebook that just mysteriously vanished. Like, where is it? Like, clearly somebody destroyed it, or they have it and it's been passed down, or it's buried somewhere. It is possible that the treasure itself is buried in several different locations. It could be with the site where Queen Anne's Revenge was found. It could be in the inlet where the final battle took place. It could also be buried somewhere in Bathtown or in several places in Nassau, which I think it's all of the above.
Or what if some of it's back where his parents, with his parents.
And that's a good thing I thought of too, is because he was sending money back to his parents. Like, every time he had money, it was mentioned that he sent money back to his parents. So did they use what they could to just make their life a little bit better and then start putting the money in places for him? Yeah. Like, because we don't know. There's no record of his parents. I mean, there's no record of his parents. So.
I'm sure in that journal there is.
Yeah. So some of the theories are, 1, there's no treasure. I don't believe that.
No.
2, it's buried in several different locations in different towns or ports he entered. I believe that.
Or it could be in random islands that he found.
Yeah, because not every like it was all documented in his journal, but it wasn't documented through like other sources. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he didn't necessarily like all of his men knew, but most of the men were killed in that, so they're
Yeah.
not going to say anything because they're loyal to
Yeah.
Blackbeard. But the legend states that when asked where to find his treasure if he should die, Blackbeard stated that nobody but himself and the devil knew where it was.
Yeah.
So, thoughts and questions. We already kind of touched on this, but I believe there is a treasure. Blackbeard was very frugal with his money. He only bought items when he needed to. He sent money back to his family in Bristol, kept some for himself, and buried the rest in multiple places. While most of the men spent their money on rum and clothing, he would only buy necessities. So, like, for 1 year, he would wear one pair of pants and 2 shirts the entire year. So, like,
God damn.
yeah. In my opinion, there is a treasure, but it might not ever be found, at least not anytime soon.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that because it talks about, like, he mentioned that he would put his monies, the gold, the silver, gold dust, whichever it may be, in little bags, and he would bury them along the shoreline. That doesn't necessarily mean that it was in Nassau, but that there is mentionings that he did bury it there. And he only kept a small amount of money on the ship itself in his quarters. So there's money there's
Somewhere.
treasure somewhere, or multiple somewheres.
Or what if there was treasure on his ship, but it mysteriously sunk? So did the person who last had that ship take everything that was
true
on it?
Yeah. And did they decide to, we'll just live like we normally do, and then we'll just do like mini splurges or whatever, so it doesn't look suspicious? Yeah.
Or it was someone who already had money, so it didn't necessarily look like anything.
Right, like
suspicious.
A governor?
Yeah. Or maybe the one that was going after him.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many possibilities, and I think he might have even buried some in Bathtown because they were there for a month or so, a little over a month, almost 2 months, really. And he would survey the land multiple times, like daily, just like he did. Like he would survey his ship, even when they were docked in the safety of Nassau, like they felt very comfortable there. That was their home base. He would still walk the perimeters of the island, and I think, I think there is treasure, and it's just buried in multiple locations.
Or, well, honestly, if you do find the Blackbeard's treasure, are you going to talk about it?
Probably not.
So,
because that's the other thing. Is it cursed? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's a whole nother.
It's a whole nother thing. And
yeah. But I mean, most people, when they find something, they're not going to say anything until they try and sell it, or unless they're just going to keep it.
Yeah. Well, and they might not want people coming and asking questions.
Right. Or people asking for money.
Yeah. There's a lot of questions surrounding that, and we won't know. And it's very suspicious that the ship sank when they weren't even using it.
Yeah. And it was documented, noted, however you want to say, in his notebook and by several of his crewmen that it was still seaworthy. And the way they were meticulous about it, like anytime they would dock or make it back to home base, they would have enough money and they would replace boards. And if there was holes, they would fill them. Like they would
keep up with it.
Yeah. Paint it. Like they were very dedicated to making sure that the ship was going to last. Yeah. So there's more shit to this story than what there is, but.
Yeah, and probably never know the truth.
Yeah. Did you have any other questions? I don't have any more.
So the only thing I'm wondering, they say everyone was loyal to him, but was there someone in there that could have betrayed?
Oh, absolutely.
Blackbeard.
I would think maybe. I honestly thought like maybe one of the newbies.
Yeah,
in part of the like
something?
30 to 40 crew. His last crew. I kind of wonder because the governor of Virginia had spies like all up and down the coast which I understand. You know, you got to get information, and he would have, in that regards, he would have spies planted in like the harbor cities, especially the harbor cities that Blackbeard would go into.
So I was like wondering, like, did someone get onto this ship that had connections?
Yeah.
That could tell them where he was, what he was doing, try to get secrets.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe it.
I know I know that there is probably most of them are, a lot of them are probably very loyal to him, but I'm sure there's some out there that probably
are not.
Yeah. Well, and it could be also be like, oh, you tell me where his treasure is. You tell me where he's at, and tell me all this shit, and you'll get a cut of it.
Yeah, not the full, or you'll get a nice cut, and then they were probably lying about that too, and just took off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's really my only question, because I mean, there's like a shit ton of questions, but none will be answered.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Like, where the fuck is the
treasure?
Like, treasure.
Yeah.
Where's the journal? Why did the ship sink?
Yeah. I'm really curious as to what happened to the journal. Because if it was in custody of whoever had it at the time, I'm assuming it had to have been someone with in the governor's field. So who dropped the ball and who, like, it's one of those things to me that was just like kind of like a cover-up. Per se.
Yeah. Well, and it's got to be more than just one journal.
Right.
It's got to be multiple if he's been doing this for years.
Yeah, since like...
And does it daily?
1710, and it was 1718 or something like that.
Yeah, and
that's a long time.
He said that he wrote every day in it. So it's like there's got to be multiple journals, not just one.
Yeah. Especially like if one page, like if, when you open a book and it has a page on each side, and if he used that as like, maybe one side had all the sketchings and then everything underneath, like very easily with sketchings and little drawings and stuff like that, it could very easily
be more. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's all of my questions and thoughts. This one was another like fun one. Kind of laid back, not so
dramatic. I mean, it was dramatic, but not like...
Not so serious.
Yeah.
And I can't say anything for the next case.
Yeah. Nothing.
I'll just say the next case is gonna throw pretty much everyone for a loop, probably. Yeah. But we are doing another Reddit before we do case, because things happen, and we want to make sure that we have a good case.
Right.
We don't want to just throw together a case and it be not to our full potential of being a case.
Yeah.
We want the best of the best.
Right.
So, we're doing what we're doing.
Right.
And that's okay. So, with that is all we have for today. Thank you for listening. If you have any questions or comments, you can find us on Spotify, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at Girls Gone Curious Podcast. Until next time.